Alrighty, last week me and Patrick over here went through some of the differences between Fort Collins and Loveland. But today we're going to be duking it out for Loveland vs Fort Collins. We're going to be running through those pros and cons of each one, and I'm going to be dissing Fort Collins as much as I possibly can. So come along on this video. My name is Connor Martin. I work with Sukup Real Estate Services in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I love sharing these videos with you guys to give you guys as much information as possible for Loveland, Colorado, and I love helping people find their place here. And so if you guys are ever interested in wanting to buy, purchase, sell up here in Northern Colorado, please give me or Patrick over here a call and we'll definitely help you guys out. Please like, share, comment, and we're going to jump into the pros and cons of Loveland and Fort Collins, Colorado.
Alrighty, the big brother has to start. The 180,000 people in Fort Collins, we get to go first. So we're gonna start with the cons, and specifically the cons to Loveland, where I'm gonna kind of talk, and overall Northern Colorado. And I would have to say, definitely the one thing that Loveland doesn't necessarily have that Fort Collins has a lot more of is traffic. And again, perspective is everything, because working with people from out of state when coming in from big metros, Fort Collins isn't horrible, but comparatively to Loveland, I mean, it's just a matter of, basic math. We've got more people, so we got more people on the roads. Our infrastructure is set up pretty well for it, but still, when you add an extra 80,000 people to the roads, and our median age being 33, so right around 30, and we're gonna have more people out on the roads working, commuting to and from work. As much as the COVID shutdown sucked and was not fun for anybody, being able to pop on the roads and get downtown pretty quick when no one else was driving was awesome. And you forget how much traffic there is. And so I would definitely say that would be one of the bigger cons of Fort Collins versus Loveland. So Loveland definitely's got me on that one.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, but I'd also say on the same side, even though you guys have a lot of traffic out there and it feels like you're always sitting in it. I mean, there's been days where I started on the west side of Loveland on Harmony Road and went all the way over to Timnath, Colorado. And it took me an hour and a half one day just because of how much traffic there was. I ran through 2 accidents and it was just miserable. And I was just stuck there. And of course my car doesn't have AC all that great, only when it's going forward. So I was just sweating, the worst I possibly could. And so even though that is bad, you guys at least don't have to deal with out-of-state drivers nearly as much as we do, except when maybe college comes in. But when you got college students, they take risks. So that's why you probably see more accidents maybe up in Fort Collins, but at least people are getting maybe there a little quicker than you are over in Loveland, Colorado. Because we are so close to Estes Park, and because we have such a high population of older generations, 55 and over communities, nursing homes, retirement homes, life on the road in Loveland is a slow one. People obey the speed limits better than I've ever seen anywhere I've ever lived, up in Montana and Kansas and Connecticut, on the south side of Colorado. They follow it to the point, and they love driving next to each other because it makes them feel very safe. So for me, I sit there and say, it takes me sometimes 20 to 25 minutes just to get places because I'm stuck behind 2 people that just won't get out of my way. If you're in a line somewhere, it just takes longer. And then when you have people who are from out of state and people who are from out of the country, you end up finding people driving on the wrong side of the road half the time. You find people going on one ways the wrong direction. You find people that don't understand the difference between yellow, red, and green, and so they're blowing through red lights like no other. And so for me, even though Fort Collins might have more traffic, I think they have better drivers than they do here in Loveland, Colorado. And so I would say, at least on that side, I'll give that up to Fort Collins, that I can make it probably quicker around Fort Collins than I can in Loveland, Colorado.
All right, so we got con number 1 for each of us. Both is traffic, but for me, it's just we got more people. And it sounds like for you guys, it might be that it's just people from out of state, a little bit older, who don't necessarily cooperate with a fast-moving traffic pace.
Yep, no, and that's exactly it. It's a very slow-paced lifestyle over in Loveland, Colorado.
All right, well, so for me, I would say probably the second biggest con, or one of the second cons, I should say, for Fort Collins comparatively to Loveland, is we really don't have too much infill opportunities for development. And what that means is the only way to go and you can't go out is up. And you know, we live in northern Colorado in Fort Collins because we want to see the mountains, the sunsets, the sunrises, and specifically downtown Fort Collins is probably the most at risk. As you kind of expand out, you probably won't have as much risk of people, you know, destroying your views, but it's there. But downtown are definitely getting redeveloped. Single-story buildings are getting converted into 3- and 4-story buildings, and if you just happen to be behind that property that gets redeveloped and you used to be able to see Horsetooth Rock, it's possible that you don't see that anymore.
Yep.
And what that also means is because of the lack of infill opportunities, well, our price of homes are going to be increasing because, you know, supply is just going to be constrained. So a lot of people that want to live in Fort Collins, there's only so many properties to choose from, only so many infill opportunities. So what do they have to do? They either have to pay the price to live in Fort Collins or potentially move out to outer areas, you know, such as Loveland.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. And I sadly felt that right in my heart. My house had a great view for a very long time when I first moved into it, back to a nice cornfield. And then just this year, they built homes to where I can't even see the mountains no more, and it's really sad. So Loveland has a little bit of that, but at least at some points, depending on where you live, the northwest side is still the side that's getting built up in Loveland, but you're still gonna have some pretty good views over in Loveland versus Fort Collins, where there's probably a higher possibility of you losing your view at some point to a high rise.
Okay.
And so, but for me, my second negative for Loveland is going to be the jobs in Loveland, Colorado. So when you think of Loveland, it's a nursing community. So we have a lot of hospitals, we have a lot of emergency rooms, we have everything to pretty much deal with the medical side. So that's a huge part of our job in Loveland, Colorado. So if you're a nurse, best place to live, I can definitely guarantee you that. But if you're looking to be someone who is in the technology field, in the engineering field, or some of those bigger tech jobs, that you're not gonna find those as much up in Loveland, Colorado. And the only other jobs that are really up there are gonna be manufacturing jobs. So just those kind of blue collar ones where you're just going in and grinding out stuff. You know, we have the Amazon factory up in Loveland. And so for me, you're gonna see a lot of people commuting in Loveland, Colorado down to Denver or up to Fort Collins or over to Greeley to try and find those different types of jobs that they desire. So to me, that is one of the big negatives. Is if you live in Loveland, Colorado, either you're gonna wanna make sure you have a job before moving there, or you're gonna probably end up finding something that's gonna be outside of Loveland. So you're gonna be driving between 30 to 60 minutes to go find a job.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I haven't thought too much about that with Loveland, but I could see that, you know, it's just not as much commercial opportunity, which, you know, even that kind of leads me into, you know, my point number 3 of Fort Collins and what its con is. We're between this like smaller community of, you know, 50 to 100,000 people like you got in Loveland, or, you know, Windsor's getting there, and also, but we're too small like we have in, you know, Colorado Springs, or obviously Denver, where you've got 1 million plus people.
Yep.
So we don't necessarily have the density that allows these more expensive, or I shouldn't say expensive, but more upscale, high scale eateries options that are coming here.
Yep.
You know, you're gonna have a lot of American grills here. I mean, more than you can want. But me and my wife, we were going out the other night, we were going on a date, we were kind of just driving down Harmony Road, and we were trying to figure out where we wanted to go eat, and we kind of talked about like Italian. And I mean, yes, downtown we've got Jay's Bistro or Rare Italian, and that's nice, but those are really kind of two of the only like high-end Italian restaurants. So the two options we talked about Olive Garden or Carrabba's.
Yep.
And we went to Olive Garden, and it was a 45-minute wait, so we sure as shit weren't gonna wait there. And so we went to Carrabba's and got right in, but it's unfortunate that we don't have that you know, amount of choices to choose from on these kind of like higher end so when those nights come that you want to go on a nice date night, or, you know, take a client out to lunch. I was really sad to see the kitchen go away, you know, a couple of years ago, which was out of Boulder, a very nice place to eat where you'd want to bring your clients and have a lunch on a Wednesday afternoon. Well, again, my wife came on a Wednesday afternoon for us to go to lunch, and there was 2 people besides us eating on a Wednesday at 2 o'clock prime time, or maybe it was 12:30 prime time, take your clients out to lunch, and there was 2 tables taken. So
Yep.
Fort Collins, we're still kind of just like trying to figure out who we are, and we just don't have the density to bring these kind of more influential eateries and options for the Fort Collins palate. But maybe we'll get there one day. But I would definitely say that's kind of my third con is we're between this, like, we're this fledgling city, and we just don't have as much options as I'd like as a big city would.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, you know. At least for like what I can see with Fort Collins is at least you guys have a lot of more mom and pop shop restaurants, which I do really enjoy. There's quite a few that are at least down in Fort Collins, like Lucille's for, you know, gumbo in the evening.
Absolutely.
You know, there's just ones like that, which is nice where, like, for example, Loveland is more of, it's a little more commercial in terms of food. I think just due to the fact that we do get a lot of people from out of state and from out of country. You know, you're not gonna go to the Mexican food truck that's on every corner in Loveland and Fort Collins. More than likely, you're gonna go to a Bad Daddy's Burger and go get a nice juicy burger from them versus probably looking for those, you know, smaller restaurants. And even when you go in and Google, you know, closest restaurants near me, you're never gonna see the small mom and pop restaurants pop up first. You're gonna get Bad Daddy's, you're gonna have Olive Garden, you're gonna have Oregano's, you're gonna run into all of those. And so you're gonna have to dive even deeper to find those, you know, more unique restaurants that you might find in downtown Fort Collins or downtown Loveland. And so that is one of those negatives I can see that they kind of, unfortunately, comes from both sides just because we are so small.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that to me is another one negative for Loveland on that side, is that we do have a lot of chain restaurants, you know. I mean, I find myself going to Taco Bell and McDonald's way more than I should be, and it's really sad because I just can't seem to find those places that are, you know, quick and fast and easy like those are. And so I'm just hoping as we keep growing, we keep developing, hopefully our palates change. Hopefully we find more than just the American food, Hispanic food or Asian food. Hopefully we branch out a little bit and we find something a little more unique that suits Fort Collins and Loveland as kind of that brewery group is kind of what I see up in northern Colorado, at least so far.
Absolutely. So would you say that's your kind of third con as well, kind of like a little, like, just lack of options, lack of choices on the eating side as well?
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to almost everything. Like, everything in Loveland is a chain. You know, you're rarely gonna find things that aren't chains in Loveland right now. I mean, we have a huge Shields up on the east side of Loveland by I-25. Up in Centerra, you're gonna have your regular Victoria's Secrets, Bed and Bath and Body Works.
Yeah.
And just, you're not gonna find too many small shops where you're gonna be like, you know, I'm gonna go support local.
Yeah.
Because they're just not there yet, and they're just hard to find because they are being outcompeted by the huge Shields that's got a 80,000 square foot building with everything you could possibly ask for in it. Right. So it's definitely a challenge, and that's something I definitely see as a negative, and it's hard to support local up here when there's not that many choices.
Sure. All right. So we got through the cons. So the kind of the bad stuff comparatively to each other, and hopefully you guys can kind of see maybe a little bit more, you know, what each has to offer comparatively to the other. And now I would say let's, you know, as far as how the pros go, which is a little bit more, you know, enjoyable to talk about, but you know, starting with our you know, our top 3 pros for each, I would have to say for me, whenever I talk about Loveland, and I'm going to be curious to hear your side, your thoughts on this, is I do not like the city layout of Loveland comparatively to Fort Collins. It is honestly, like, for me, one of the biggest reasons I prefer Fort Collins over Loveland is we're on this kind of like grid, and we have our main arteries going north and south, main arteries going east and west. We have one main commercial, Highway 287, going north-south, and then one main highway, or not highway, but main artery going east-west in harmony that has our commercial that lines it and residential tucked behind it, and then our industrial kind of out northwest side of town. So it lays out really well, whether you are looking for commercial opportunities for, you know, gyms, restaurants, shopping, whatever that might be. It's really easy to find. And then your residential isn't really mixed too much, except now as it's getting denser in the Old Town area, you are getting more people in that commercial area, which that's by choice, so that's totally okay, but your single family residential are tucked behind the commercial, far away from the industrial. So I would say the pro comparatively to Fort Collins to Loveland, I really love our city layout, and maybe you can, combat me a little bit on that versus from your perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not a big fan of grid systems. In most of the towns I lived in Bozeman, Montana, where it wasn't a grid system. Loveland, Colorado is the same deal. The only place I ever really lived where it was a real true grid system was up in Kansas. And it was nice for the fact because one, we don't have the mountains in Kansas, so I was lost all the time until I figured out where the sun set and where the sun, came up. And so it took me a long time, and I just remember the first night I think I went out to Kansas City, Missouri, and I got lost in downtown, couldn't find my way back, but I kept just following the coordinates and the roads, and I finally eventually made it back miraculously. And so there are benefits to having it, but for me, I'm a back roads guy. Being a motorcycle rider, I don't really care for going on any of those main corridors anymore. I don't really like being around a bunch of traffic, and I think that's what Loveland has. We have so many streets that cut and dive and maneuver around. You're gonna have to deal with a little bit more stop signs and things like that. But if you're looking to get away from the traffic, even though it might take you an extra 2 to 3 minutes, you're gonna be driving by yourself for a good chunk of it, and you're not gonna have to deal with driving in a 2-lane road. Again, fighting with a bunch of college students, trying to see who's going to be first to that red light.
Right.
And so for me, Loveland, I think, has a little bit better of that coordinate, in terms of it's just kind of random. It's built around lakes and ponds and reservoirs. And so that's just what I grew up with. And so that's something I guess I've just enjoyed. And so that's just my side on that part.
I like it. Hey, no, that's what this is about, is honestly talking where, Fort Collins and Loveland differ, and because we're so close.
Oh, God, yeah.
So that's a good perspective. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so one of my positives of Loveland, and it comes down to, you always hear people talk about how Fort Collins is this great recreational place. Not that great. I consider Loveland to be 10 times better than Fort Collins is because, one, you go farther north, it turns kind of into a desert and a place where it's burned up. We've had a couple of huge fires here the last few years. We had one in 2013 that took out the bottom half of our foothills, and just last year we had another massive fire that took up the rest of the foothills and started actually going up into Steamboat, up to Cameron Pass. And so pretty much everything recreational wise right now up in Loveland up in Fort Collins is toast. You can't go do anything, everything's shut down. If it is there, you've got no shade, and so you're just dying half the time. And so I don't really care for it. I still go up there all the time because I do love Pooter Canyon and Highway 14 because there are some decent stuff up there, but going up to Horsetooth Rock or anything like that, it's not my cup of tea. So for me, Loveland is one of the best places because we are closest to Rocky Mountain National Park, where there are some of the probably best hikes you're going to have. Granted, they are very busy, even though they are restricting people up there right now. So if you are going to think about traveling up to Rocky Mountain, definitely check that out before you come up that way. But we are closer to better biking, we are closer to better hiking, we are closer to 3 different reservoirs in northern Colorado, so you have your pick and choose of it, and they're all relatively within the same distance. So for me, Fort Collins, again, it's up in Wyoming. You don't want to be up in Wyoming. You want to be down in Colorado where it's beautiful. So that's where I'm sitting there saying Loveland is the place for people who are wanting recreation.
All right, I dig it. I appreciate that. I like it. All right. Well, I would have to say that, that's true. Like in northern Colorado in general, which I would have to include Fort Collins on that, the outdoor lifestyle is pretty phenomenal. So I don't know about which is better, but I guess according to this guy, Loveland would be that. So for me though, if we're talking about, opportunities for recreation, outdoor activities, all that kind of stuff, I would have to say that one of the things that you're also going to want when you're moving into a town is commercial opportunities. And again, even though we talked about in the cons, maybe our restaurants, we don't have as many opportunities for that, like fine dining, eateries, or unique opportunities, but we do have more people than Loveland. And so, one of the things that I've been given shit on this on previous videos is commercial follows residential rooftops. The more residential rooftops you have, the more people you have, commercial will follow. So that being said, we're gonna have more gym opportunities. You're gonna choose from more gyms. You're gonna get to have different, like a climbing studio, like an ascent studio that you just couldn't necessarily have in Loveland just because the population doesn't support it. As well as, you know, a roller rink, and there's bowling alleys in both, and there's opportunities that you're gonna have to go have fun outdoors. You know, there's movie theaters in there's movie theaters in both. Centerra is phenomenal as far as shopping goes, so I can't like take it away from that. Our downtown area is pretty damn cool, as is Loveland's. It's been redeveloped and lots of cool things going on down there. But I would just say in general, because we have more people, we have more commercial opportunities here, and so you don't necessarily, we have a ton of people who do come from Laramie and Cheyenne. We actually have, I think it's a week or a day that's like a Wyoming day or a Wyoming week that, you know, people come down here because there's just not, now I think one thing we can both agree on is that it's, you know, go move in Laramie or Cheyenne if you want to get the hell out of Dodge and like not have anything to do, because all of those people come down to Fort Collins and Loveland when they're looking at, you know, spending some dollars and having fun. So that's my pro number 2, is just more people gives more commercial opportunities.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense on that side, and that is definitely something that I think Fort Collins or Loveland actually really lacks is, yeah, we just don't have the people and the resources to have all those cool, you know, indoor activities. You know, we, like you said, you know, I think we have 2 bowling alleys, we have a couple billiards places. That's about it for our indoor activities. You know, we might have a putt-putt place somewhere, but, you know, Fort Collins is definitely the place to go if you want to have in-town activities. Loveland, you know, the best in-town activities you're going to get is probably biking around Sculpture Park, which kind of leads me into my next pro, is Loveland is a huge place for artists. You know, when I first moved in there, that didn't really make sense because I didn't see that much art around, and, you know, I went to school for 1 year to do ceramics, so I thought I was pretty much a professional artist at that point. But, you know, as I got to go around Sculpture Park, you know, I always wondered, you know, how does the city afford something like that? And back in the 1800s, I think it was around 1865 or something like that, they actually put a bill into the Loveland municipality where they actually spend roughly around $50,000 a year on art projects, maintaining art, putting in new sculptures. And so that's a big aspect where you're going to see a lot of art just around Loveland, Colorado. Some great things to be able to take pictures with and view. Actually, just last weekend, me and my girlfriend went down to Loveland, downtown Loveland, and we actually really got to finally experience what it really means to be that Loveland lifestyle of an artist. They had 6 or 7 booths set out with just, you know, street artists. They had 2 or 3 galleries opened in downtown Loveland. And so if that's where you're at and you like looking at art, that is definitely a place where I definitely recommend being a part of, especially if you are an artist, because there are a lot of opportunities to sell your art. We have art in the park, we have art in Sculpture Park. We just have so many opportunities to, you know, get your art out there to the public, and it brings in flocks of people from all over northern Colorado and even southern Colorado and different states.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely say that Loveland stands, you know, worlds above on the arts and culture side of things as far as that goes. And, you know, I didn't want to get the Dukes up too bad on everything, because my third and final pro, which I think Loveland can really, you know, attest this is a strong pro for them as well, is when I'm talking with people moving from out of state into Fort Collins and northern Colorado specifically, and considering Loveland, is the question and the perspective they have on crime. And whether that was a conversation that I had with a guy from Chicago who I was talking to him about an area of town that, you know, I said, well, within a half mile, there's a fair amount of rentals, and, you know, rentals are ran a little bit tougher. And his comment to me was, well, within a half mile, there's shootings. So I was like, I just don't think that happens too much in Fort Collins. I mean, it'll happen, you know, a few times a year, but not very often. It makes headline news if and when that does happen. Yeah,
just don't go to the bars, because that's where it happens.
I mean, it's something to where, for me, I can walk with my family Monday through, you know, 7 days a week, past 9 o'clock, down in Old Town. Of course, I'm not gonna just let them go running around everywhere and do whatever they want. I'll keep my eye on them. But I'm not scared of violence, gangs, anything like that going on. So I would say, and Loveland's just the same way in regards to, it's a safe, family-friendly environment. I can't
Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love bantering with Patrick, and so it's just something I will enjoy for the rest of my life. But I really hope this helped you guys out determine maybe what might be the best place for you. Is Fort Collins the better, lifestyle for you? Is Loveland? It really comes down to that. And so I really appreciate that you guys keep watching these videos. If you guys could, again, please like, share, comment. I love making these videos for you guys to keep you guys in touch with what's going on in Loveland, but I also like helping people find their place here in Colorado. If it's looking for vacant land, for a residential, for a commercial property, I got your back, and so does this guy over here. We're both people who really enjoy helping individuals find their place, and we can't wait to keep sharing with you guys, and thank you so much for watching.